amazing accomplishment. I am going to go over this presentation. I am probably going to recommend a follow-up presentation provided by the Center on Budget and Policies Priorities. I'll send you the link, or we'll see the link to that recording, because they really do a good job and they go more in depth. I didn't want to burn you out, but I think this is information that you need to start having on your radar. I know that probably in your head, open enrollment will probably be finalized by the 15th of the month, given that you may still be working with some clients that are going to be able to go through. So this is a quick outline. I think we already mentioned the congratulations, open enrollment was a success. We'll do some quick reminders about what we've already discussed with downstate groups. I know that upstate groups have not heard some of this news, so I'll quickly touch upon those. We'll go over just what is a special enrollment period and what are the qualifying events that lead to a special enrollment period. And then we'll discuss some outreach strategies. And within the outreach strategies, really our goal is to get you thinking about either sites or organizations you may want to tap into to continue to get your enrollment numbers. We do anticipate that things are going to slow down a little bit, but that's why you're going to have the time to potentially do outreach in order to increase your numbers or continue with your numbers. And then we'll do some updates. Some of the updates Elizabeth already mentioned, but we'll just clarify. So again, it's quote-unquote officially over, and it was a success. Thank you for all your work. This was the latest numbers that we had, which Elizabeth mentioned. More than 800,000 New Yorkers enrolled in the last week, and over 100,000 additional enrolled, again, in 1 week, which is the highest reported number. If you think about 100,000 people, that's pretty big. The marketplace, as I mentioned, is on track to meet or exceed its enrollment goal of 1 million people by the end of 2016, which is fabulous. State guidance for pending applications, I literally just pulled up some of the information that was on that FAQ. If for whatever reason you do not have that FAQ, send us an email. We did send it out to all the groups, so everyone should have it. And Nora's telling me this twice to her CNN groups. We are still waiting for the state to give us guidance from a practical perspective of what's going to happen to those people who, again, due to no fault of their own, were not able to complete their application. Downstate groups had brought up various issues, whether it would also apply to people who didn't even set up an account and so forth. This is the guidance we have as of right now. We are going to have a call with the state. We're hoping to get some clarification as to what are the rules, how our clients going to be able to proceed, and we'll get that information out as soon as possible, because we know that even though you have until April 15, or those clients may have until April 15, April 15 is usually closer than we ever expect, right? So we don't want to be in a panic mode. So let me do an enrollment overview just in general. The marketplace moving forward, and at any point we'll continue to determine who's eligible to enroll, right? The marketplace will be doing that. The state is supposed to get us some screenshots of how the marketplace is going to ask questions about potential special enrollment periods for individuals who are not eligible for Medicaid or Child Health Plus. Remember that those who are eligible for public health insurance programs, they can apply throughout the year at any time, right? It is really individuals who are eligible for a QHP with or without subsidies. They are going to need an open enrollment period in order to, a special enrollment period in order to enroll. If they do not have a special enrollment period, meaning they don't have a qualifying event that allows for the special enrollment period, those people are not going to be able to enroll through the marketplace until the next open enrollment period, which is set for November 15, 2014 to February 15, 2015, okay? So in general, you want to tell your clients, again, unless they're pending, they start an application and we'll get you further guidance, that if they do not have a qualifying event, which again, if you do the application or begin the application, you will be able to find out. You also receive some information today on how to assess whether they may have a qualifying event for pre-counseling purposes. They would have to wait until November. And as a reminder, for the November to February 15, people who want to change plans or enroll for the first time, they can start doing it November, but coverage will not kick in until January. I think it's always important to remind them that they're locked into their coverage for like the year, and then they can switch starting November up until February. And obviously, if they want the January 1st coverage, they have to meet the December 15 deadline. Word of caution. Individuals who do not enroll through the marketplace may have a difficult time finding plans in the individual market. In general, people should have the option of going through the marketplace and qualifying for the subsidies there, and then let's say they miss the open enrollment period through the marketplace, it would make sense for them to see if they can get insurance outside the marketplace. Obviously, they would not be eligible for subsidies. But from more experience and what we're hearing from some clients, plans may close their doors as well, meaning clients are not going to find perhaps many options outside the marketplace. And this is because they want to prevent adverse selection, meaning why should an individual be able to access a product, let's say in June when they get sick, and get enrolled. Obviously, it's to the client's benefit, but the plan will probably know that that's someone who has a medical condition. Now that pre-existing condition cannot bar someone from getting insurance, they're concerned that they will only be getting sick people outside the open enrollment period. So if you have clients right now moving forward, especially this month, who for whatever reason could not complete an application through the marketplace, do not have a qualifying life event, they should be encouraged to go and explore any options they possibly may have outside the marketplace, because they might be prevented from finding something. So what can you do during a special enrollment period? It's common sense. You can get coverage to a QHP through the marketplace and qualify for premium tax credits and cost sharing reductions. That's the big one, really. Individuals cannot get this assistance outside the marketplace. You can also, depending on specific circumstances, which I will mention, switch plans if you are already enrolled in a QHP through the marketplace. So keep in mind that someone who is eligible for a special enrollment period can gain coverage for the first time or can switch a plan. And I'll go over those two different categories. So not everyone who has a special enrollment period necessarily will be able to switch plans around. I'll tell you which triggers which. What qualifying life events trigger a special enrollment period? So the client comes in, you're gathering a little bit of their information, you know that the open enrollment period is over, and you'll probably have something handy like this or a one-pager that we can probably get to you, and you can ask about what are the life changes that may qualify them, right? Obviously, there will probably be some pre-screening for Medicaid. The other option is just to begin the application and let the system guide you through it. But you will probably be out there in the field where you might want to do some pre-counseling, so you want to learn this information. So qualifying events, they are put in categories. Life changes. If you get married, if you gain a dependent through birth, you adopt, or you place in adoption or foster care a child. If you become a U.S. citizen, national, or lawfully present individual. If you have a permanent move, I'm just going through them. I'm going to go more in depth. You can also have a qualifying life event if there's a loss of minimum essential coverage. And this could be you lost your insurance through your employer, you lost Medicaid, CHIP, or COBRA. And again, I'll go into the details of what that entails. And it could also be triggered when you may have an employer-sponsored plan that is no longer affordable. Remember the 9.5 affordability piece, or it's not adequate, meaning it lacks the minimum value. The actual value of the plan falls below 60%, right? Again, I'll go over the details. The loss of minimum essential coverage. You cannot get a qualifying event and get a special enrollment period if you voluntarily terminate your coverage, right? Meaning you start paying your premiums through your employer. That's not going to allow you for a special enrollment period. Or you're enrolled in COBRA and you stop paying. That's not going to allow you for a special enrollment period. Other situations that would allow an individual to get a special enrollment period, which these ones are going to be important, and we'll see how they play out. Error or inaction by the marketplace or HHS, exceptional circumstances, misconduct by a non-marketplace entity like Navigator CAC, so we'll talk about that one. And there are special rules for Indian and Alaskan Natives, which I'll go over. What qualifying life events allow for a change in QHP? This screen is actually really important because when a client comes back to you, especially the clients you saw, and they say, well, I want to switch plans for whatever reason, they really cannot, once they're there, in order to have a qualifying event and be able to switch plans outside the open enrollment period, the enrollee, and this is a key word, enrollee, must demonstrate that the QHP he or she had violated a material provision of its contract, right? So that's going to be very specific, difficult probably to find, meaning the client probably tried to access some services or there's a discrepancy. That would probably be a community health advocate's referral case, and then we can follow up with that client. The second bullet point is probably more relevant. The enrollee or a dependent of the enrollee of the QHP, is newly eligible or ineligible for advanced premium tax credits. For example, your client got a plan and they had no subsidies available to them because of their income. Their income changes, and now for the first time, they're eligible for premium tax credits. Let's say at that point the client got a catastrophic plan because they didn't qualify for any assistance and that was all they could afford. Because they're now eligible for premium tax credits, they can switch into any other plan. They can now potentially get the silver if they're also eligible for cost sharing reduction options, gold or platinum, okay? They can also switch if they are no longer eligible for tax credits. So assuming that they were getting tax credits, they got a gold plan because they were getting the extra help, and now they are no longer eligible at all, then they can switch around and maybe take a silver plan and so forth. This also applies to changes in eligibility for cost-sharing reductions. So anyone who moves from one bracket, meaning 0 deductible, 250 to 1750 deductible, depending on where they fall for the cost-sharing, they will be able to switch plans. The caveat is that changing plans will start the deductibles and the maximum out-of-pocket caps. These are not carry over. So a switch for someone who has not used the services or benefits may be okay. For someone who has already started a deductible, you want to evaluate whether it's worth changing QHP at that point. Keep this information handy. Again, you'll have this presentation, and we'll probably give you some additional worksheets for you to have handy in case you have to remind yourself of what qualifying events allow someone to change a QHP once they're enrolled. Triggering a special enrollment period. So this is very important. People have 60 days from the time the event occurs to enroll through the marketplace or to switch plans. To switch plans only, again, if the previous categories allow them to do so. Example, Carmen loses her employer-sponsored insurance on May 31, and she has until July 30 to enroll in coverage, meaning you start counting June 1 and so forth. Marcos becomes a legal permanent resident on August 15. He has until October 13 to enroll in coverage. I'm hoping I counted my days correctly, and those should add to 60 days. If I did not, I apologize. But look at a calendar and figure the triggering event. I have to say, it will be very important for you to do outreach consistently to establish your outreach patterns, because 2 months is not a lot of time when you think of one of these events, right? Many of us go through life and we have something in mind that we need to do, and then a month goes by, then the next month goes by, and all of a sudden you realize you missed like your opportunity. People who may not have notice, for example, and I'll talk about it under the loss of minimum essential coverage. Let's say their employer stopped paying for their insurance and their insurance ended, but they didn't get a notice until later on. There may be a little bit of wiggle room because it's when they get that notice, when they effectively find out that that should be the triggering. At least that would be the argument that we would be making. But for everyone else, in general life circumstances, meaning you get married, you have 60 days from the time you get married. Your child is born, you have 60 days from the time your child is born to take action. So life changes, marriage. So these are the circumstances. I should give credit to the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities for this screen. I will revise this and include that source because I got their examples from their PowerPoint presentation. So let's say you get married and the husband or wife do not have a QHP, meaning they didn't enroll through the open enrollment period. They get married, they have 60 days to go into the marketplace and apply for a QHP. Again, this assumes that they don't have any access to coverage through their employment, right? Let's say the husband has a QHP, meaning he was enrolled. The wife can join the husband's QHP. At that point, you edit the account, make a life change event, you add the spouse. Now it's two people, so instead of a single, it's going to be a couples plan, and wife can join that same plan. Wife can also enroll into a different QHP. We had mentioned earlier during the first half of case rounds that the functionality in the marketplace may not be there for this purpose. Keep an eye out. We're going to see if we can push for this because in theory, people should be able to select different QHPs even if they're married. And the third option is that both husband and wife can enroll in a different QHP. So despite husband having one, they can say, well, let's just switch. But remember, if husband had it and husband started paying for their deductible, you might want to reconsider. Special plan enrollment dates. So I should tell you that for some of these life changes events, you don't follow the 15th of the month. So for marriage, coverage will begin the first day of the following month, right? So you do your application, you get married. Here's Peter and Jessica married on June 20 and apply by June 28. Their coverage should begin July 1st. It doesn't go with the 15th of the month deadline, right? Which I think is great. I mean, there's no lapse. If you get everything in order, you should be set to go. Birth, adoption, placement for foster care, or adoption. Okay, so usually probably you're going to encounter people who have children. If mom has a QHP, mom can again go and add the newborn, do the life change event on the application, and add the child to the plan. I do have to say that there's some special rules about when tax credits will kick in. The thing is that the mom would be potentially eligible for tax credits. The child most likely will fall under the Child Health Plus program, right? So there's no tax credits involved. If the child is born in the middle of the month, then the tax credit for that month might not kick in. They might kick in the following month. Again, a little too much detail for now, but don't be alarmed if that's the case. The child will be most likely put into Child Health Plus. If mom doesn't have a QHP, both can enroll in a QHP. So that's like a big news, right? So it's not only that the child can get coverage through the marketplace. Again, if the child is eligible for CHIP, he can, in theory, apply at any time. The added perk is that if mom didn't have health insurance at that point, she would be eligible for marketplace coverage and potentially tax credits. One would assume that hopefully mom had some type of insurance because she was pregnant. Being pregnant alone does not trigger a special enrollment period. So someone comes in and say, well, I'm pregnant, or it's like you need the kid in order to be able to go through the marketplace. Coverage begins the date of the birth, adoption, or when the placement occurs. That is really important, and I think that is really good because to be able to have your kid to go back to the time that they were born, especially, you have your child may or may not be easily included in your health plan, the parent's plan. So it's good to know that if you do apply. Now, this is really not for Child Health Plus. The state did bring up the issue that for Child Health Plus follows the 15 of the month rule. So a child who is born after the 15 could potentially go without coverage for over a month because you will miss that enrollment period, right? So the plan doesn't kick in until the second month if you enroll after the 15th of the month. The state was going to look into this. It doesn't make sense that for a QHP, the child's start date will be the time of the birth, but for Child Health Plus, there may be a lapse in coverage. We'll keep you abreast as to this information. I hope that I'm not confusing you on that and that makes sense. Becoming a citizen, national, or lawfully present individual. So someone becomes a U.S. citizen or they gain legal status, they can then go ahead and apply through the marketplace. One of the questions I personally had was, well, what if someone is a legal permanent resident and then becomes a citizen and they were a permanent resident and they miss the open enrollment period? It seems like as long as you gain any of those status outside the open enrollment period, it will trigger a life event and then you can apply. So that's good news. Deferred action under DACA does not qualify as lawfully present status. Greg had mentioned in our case rounds in the morning that the Empire Justice Center crosswalk is a great tool for you to refer on what categories, what immigration categories qualify. And that may be a good source to determine or review some of the lawfully present categories. Permanent move, moving to another state or within a state if you move outside of your health plan service area will trigger an event, a qualifying event. Example, Cynthia moves from California to New York. She can enroll through the marketplace within 60 days of her move, even if she did not have coverage before in California. So that's a really good deal for someone who's moving across the state. I mean, if someone missed the open enrollment period, they get sick, they cannot get coverage outside the marketplace, and they have a family member across the state or anywhere else, that might be something to consider. Mary moves from Nassau County to Staten Island. She can enroll through the marketplace in Staten Island under the assumption that the plan offerings would not be the same. That's why I had to move, you know, a little bit further. Because if the client only moves like a few blocks or within the same county, chances are the plans are going to be the same, right? Because the plans are county-based. So you need actually to use this permanent move to not have the same offerings. This life change event follow the regular plan enrollment. Coverage begins the first day of the following month if the plan is selected by the 15th of the month, or the first day of the second plan is selected after the 15th of the month. Loss of minimum essential coverage. So as I mentioned, if the client comes in and they tell you, well, my employer stopped offering insurance, or you do the affordability or adequacy test, they can get access to the marketplace, and chances are they'll be eligible for tax credits at that point, especially if the affordability piece is not present. The only thing is that the client had to be enrolled in the employer-sponsored coverage plan. For example, I've actually had some clients who come in and the client missed their employer-sponsored open enrollment period and they want to get access to the marketplace. If we assume that the plan was not affordable or adequate at this point after the open enrollment period, you know, they needed to have been enrolled in the plan in order for them to now have access. They cannot say my employer offers it, but I was never enrolled in it, because then they didn't lose minimum essential coverage. They just never had it. No longer eligible for Medicaid. Chances are you're going to see this clients when they're due to renew, right? You might potentially start seeing these clients in the next few months for those who are no longer eligible even under the new rules, meaning they're due to renew in the next few months in the summer, and they are above the 138 threshold expanded Medicaid. For the rest of the clients, you'll probably see them after their 12 months continuous Medicaid coverage concludes, right? At that point, if they're no longer eligible for Medicaid and they are not within the open enrollment period, they will get a special enrollment period. They have 60 days. It's very important for them to have that notice and to keep record of that notice in order to be able to qualify for the special enrollment period. Someone who's no longer eligible for Child Health Plus, you know, Child Health Plus usually ends when the child reaches age 19. So you will probably encounter those cases where parents are going to come in and their 19-year-old is aging out, and those kids will have 60 days to be able to enroll into a QHP, whether the parent had it or not. If the family income increases to over 400% and the child is still under 19 years old, remember that upon renewal, the parent can choose between CHIP, full premium, and a qualified health plan. And that would give them a triggering event to be able to enroll. You want to time enrollment for those kids because you don't want any lapsing coverage, meaning if they're aging out or being kicked out of CHIP because they're no longer eligible for it because the family income is above 400%, you want to time the whole transition. I recognize that this has not been easy through the marketplace, that, you know, oftentimes kids aging out of CHIP have seen a lapsing coverage. We're hoping the state will fix this. I think they have fixed it. If you have any issues, let us know. Exhaustion of COBRA coverage. This is a big one, and I hope everyone's clear on COBRA. People who were on COBRA and did not enroll up to the open enrollment period, meaning yesterday, and they don't have any extension, they cannot just drop COBRA anymore and go into the marketplace. At this point, they would have to exhaust their COBRA coverage. But once their COBRA coverage is exhausted, meaning they can no longer claim it, that triggers a special enrollment period. And the nice thing about this category of loss of minimum essential coverage begins the first day of the following month. So these categories do not follow the 15th of the month deadline. You know, someone loses their minimum essential coverage, it makes sense that there should be no lapsing coverage. So as long as they apply in the month, they will get it the first of the following month. Other situations that I mentioned that may be important, they're not as clear-cut, right? And we don't know how they're going to necessarily play out, but you should be aware of them. An error or inaction by the marketplace or HHS would trigger a special enrollment period. If someone enrolled or did not enroll in a QHP because of an error, misrepresentation, or inaction of an officer, employee, or agent of the marketplace or its instrumentalities, the big question here is how do you prove that? So record-keeping notes is very important, especially if you're going to be helping clients advocate for the special enrollment period. The marketplace will determine whether that situation qualifies for a special enrollment period and make any necessary changes to correct the error, right? Again, it's very important to have accurate notes, and when you're talking to clients who have a compelling situation, you want to get an account of their situation and get names. You want to get names of the representatives that are providing whatever information they're providing. Even if it's mixed information, you want to record that because you're getting mixed information and the client wasn't able to successfully do their application. Exceptional circumstances. These are based on Health and Human Services guidelines. The example that they provided is someone, for example, who qualified for an exemption to the individual mandate and they lost that eligibility. I'm going to go through my example to see if this makes sense. So John got an affordability exemption from the individual mandate because the cost of coverage was greater than 8% of his household income, right? So there is this general exception that you're not subject to the penalty if you have to pay more than 8% of your income or the lowest cost plan. I mean, there's more to that rule. He gets a new job, and the job doesn't offer coverage, and he's no longer eligible for this exemption because his income has increased and the cost of insurance will now be less than 8%. So now he realizes, well, I no longer qualify for this exemption because my income went up. I should be able to afford coverage. He can now go into the marketplace and apply. right? And that will allow him to do that. And the reasoning is that he's no longer exempt from the mandate. More details to come on this stuff. I think there's an entire presentation that can come out for exemptions in the individual mandate, which is on our radar, because the next big piece clients are going to come and ask you about is like, well, okay, I don't have a qualifying life event. I'm concerned about that penalty, right? So we'll be working hard, to say the least, on preparing materials for you guys to have for those counseling sessions. Plan enrollment for these situations will be determined by the circumstances of each case and any HHS guidelines. We're continuing with misconduct by a non-marketplace entity providing formal enrollment assistance. This includes every one of you. So that's navigators, CACs, and brokers. We are only human, and we can potentially make mistakes. And we can only extract certain information from clients. We cannot force them to tell us everything. So if a navigator or CAC failed to correctly enroll a client into a QHP or to correctly get the client's subsidies, right? If, let's say, you went through the application for whatever reason, you didn't select the yes, I want help paying for insurance, and the client didn't realize that that was a mistake, or you didn't realize it, that may potentially allow for a special enrollment period for that client. But again, this is, in theory, we'll see how, from a practical perspective, this plays out. We're hoping the state will give us further guidance on whether the client will have to attest, whether there will be a formal complaint in order for them to get that special enrollment. Again, the coverage date will be determined based on the circumstances and HHS guidelines. Special role for Indian and Alaska Natives. American Indians and Alaska Natives can enroll into a QHP or change from one to another once a month. That's really good. For them, the enrollment, the regular plan enrollment timeline follows, meaning if you get the first of the following month, if you select the plan by the 15th, and so forth. This is just a special rule for Indians and Alaskan Natives, okay? Common question. I signed up for a Bronx plan with a high deductible during open enrollment. Now, 6 months later, I need surgery and would rather have a different plan with a lower deductible. Can I change plans? No. In general, once you sign up for a plan, you are locked into that plan for 12 months or until the next open enrollment period. A change in health status alone doesn't make you eligible for a special enrollment period. So it's kind of tough luck there. But again, it's adverse selection, right? Why should someone get the advantage of a lower premium cost for 6 months and they realize, like, oh, I think I'm better off with a platinum now that I'm having surgery? When you really do the math, you might be the same. But that's something to keep in mind. I want to point out the source. So Kaiser Family Foundation FAQ, and the website will be at the bottom. Please go and visit the Kaiser Family Foundation FAQ. It is absolutely amazing and helpful, especially with now special enrollment. It will answer questions as like, you know, my son is moving to college. Can he enroll there? Will that lead him into a special enrollment period? Which the answer is yes. That's a permanent move. It is really helpful. I use it very often to even answer some of the questions you send me as a secondary source, and obviously I confirm the information. So the website will be there. Use it. I think you'll find it very useful. Moving to outreach strategies. So the work continues. And now that you have a sense of what may be some of the qualifying events that will trigger a special enrollment period for QHPs. Remember, Medicaid CHIP, you can enroll at any time, right? So outreach overview. Think about places and organizations where you would find individuals that would qualify for a special enrollment period. Keep in mind the information we just discussed. Network or connect with its agencies. Establish a referral or site visit protocol, right? I think once you have a little more downtime, which I'm assuming is after April 15th or maybe towards the end of the month, you really want to sit down and assess your sites. If you have sites, you want to assess your sites and see, are they going to be producing the numbers that you were getting? Do you need to do outreach and obtain maybe a different site, and you will have to test that out. If you establish a new site, determine whether it is producing the numbers you need or whether a referral system would be best. You know, it's very hard to be at every place potentially where people would be eligible for a special enrollment period, right? And I'll give you some ideas of where those places are. So it may be a matter of being very clever with your outreach material, your flyers, as long as they're approved, to send them out and then have your phone number on those critical places and just get those referrals, as opposed to being there every week and having a hit or miss. There are definitely some places that I would really encourage, and I will mention those, where you should really try to get a site, just because you will probably have a consistent flow of people who would qualify for a special enrollment period. Developing materials or getting materials approved that speak to the population you're trying to reach will now be very important, right? For the last few months, it has been just general information. Come, enrolled, it doesn't matter, you will be able to enroll. Now it's going to be a little bit more narrow. Obviously, continue to reach out to individuals eligible for Medicaid and Child Health Plus. Begin outreach to small businesses. So small businesses can enroll employees at any time through the small business marketplace. In order to be deemed a small business, they need to have fewer than 50 employees. Also, an employer may help an employee get coverage outside the open enrollment period by offering coverage to the small business marketplace, even if he does not contribute anything. Let me give you an example. You have a client who comes in and you ask about their job situation, and they say, well, I work for a small company. There's only 3 of us. I really need medical insurance. I didn't sign up during the open enrollment period. I am not finding any plan outside the marketplace. What can I do? Well, at that point, you will say, do you think your employer will be willing to set up an account through the small business marketplace? The client may say, well, he doesn't want to pay for health insurance. Then you tell the client, not a problem, as long as you're willing to pay the full premium, and as long as your employer establishes an account, your employer doesn't have to pay anything. And then you say, but if your employer does pay for half of it, he may be eligible for tax credits, which will help you at the end pay for some of the costs, right? And then, of course, you'll be a pro on small business, and you'll say, refer your employer to me, and I'll have a talk with him. And so that's a strategy to get potentially some people coverage who may really need it and might find themselves caught between not being able to do so through the individual market, but their employer can access coverage for them through the small business marketplace. Okay? Target, oh, and I should mention, in April, the state is doing a small business marketplace webinar. We will get you the date as soon as we get it from the state. So I know that we did one 2-3 months ago. We hope the state will have an improved version from what they provided. For CACs who didn't do the shop training or the small business marketplace training, this is going to be really useful because you'll be able to go through actual screenshots. So these are the places that you want to think about for the different target populations for life changes, right? Someone gets married, they have a child, and so forth. So you want to go to the clerk's office at district courts or where people in town get marriage licenses, marriage officiants, those people that are authorized to marry people, adoption agencies, maternity wards, foster care centers, right? I can think of maternity wards, meaning you send out or you reach out to a local hospital and you include your little flyer, or I know that there are some family maternity practices that will allow you perhaps to drop off, and they'll include it in their general booklet, which will be great because then mommies-to-be or daddies-to-be can find out that once the child is born, they do have the option of getting the child into Child Health Plus, I mean, which will be great. They don't even have to get the child into their employer sponsor. Becoming a citizen, national, or lawfully present individual. Think about all these places: citizenship classes, testing centers, biometric centers. So biometric centers, you know, when someone is going through the immigration process and they're almost reaching that final step, they have to go get fingerprinted, and there are biometric centers. You can Google them. Those places may be a little bit harder to get into, but I think with a little persistence, you can get your flyer in there. Citizenship ceremonies. Imagine being out there and putting in your calendar a citizenship ceremony in nearby, right? You can, obviously you would need prior authorization, but you can stand there at the door as everyone's walking in, as everyone's exiting out. You can give them, if you don't have insurance, if you miss the open enrollment, here you go. And those do happen often throughout the year. So take advantage of those. Again, it will require for you to do some outreach and find the appropriate parties. USCIS immigration offices, same thing. It's networking and being able to put in something, a flyer that has your name and contact information. Immigration attorneys as well, right? That could be an added perk for an immigration attorney to say, well, now that you're going to be a citizen or a lawful or legal resident, here's additional information of the benefits. And New York doesn't have a 5-year bar for Medicaid. Well, Medicaid will be ongoing, I'm sorry. But again, you get the point where they will be able to disseminate that information. Any immigration law centers or agencies, you are bringing an added resource to them, right? So being able to provide your information and them being able to refer them to you, it's going to be great. Because remember, once you acquire legal status, with some exceptions, you are subject to the individual mandate. So it's not only about getting people a special enrollment period, it's also educating them on now the responsibility to have insurance and their options to get it. U.S. passport processing centers, usually the post office does passports. I know that some colleges and universities have their own passport centers. So you have to just be creative and look for those places that where you would find the target population. Permanent move, utility companies, whenever you move, you have to establish your heat, electricity, the DMV, that would be another great source. You are moving businesses, schools, registration offices. Again, might be a matter of from my prior outreach experience, I have to say that usually, you reach out to someone, you might have to do a short presentation on what you're offering to their staff, because their staff is going to be the one that is going to be referring people to you. Leasing offices, property managers, those might be good places for you to reach out to people who are moving. Border registration offices, parolee serving agencies. We'll talk about the inmate population later on. And the general message is hold off on those. But in general, when someone is released from prison, that qualifies as a permanent move, right? So it's sad to say that more or less their home was the prison. Now they're moving out, so they would be eligible for a special enrollment period. Chances are they're eligible for Medicaid because they might not have income, but every situation is different. But we'll talk about that. That's a special population that the state wants us to hold off on. Young adults, so target population for life changes. These are a big population. So let's see. I'm trying to think of like my school calendar. I think by August, September, people move into campus for the first time. You may have people from out of state, from upstate, downstate, moving up or down, right? All those kids are eligible for a special enrollment period if they don't have health insurance at that point. So doing aggressive outreach at colleges and universities, it should be one, not too hard to do, hopefully, if you can get in, and super easy because you can probably establish your table during that month because remember, they have 60 days from the triggering event. So if they're leaving home in August, let's say they have September, mid-October to enroll because of their permanent move. And then graduation as well if they're exiting. So again, this is the population to really think about, especially because we need them for QHPs. If they're eligible for Medicaid, they're good to go. They can enroll at any time, but still, they still need to enroll to avoid the penalty. Division of Graduate Studies, a lot of people may age out of their parents' insurance and lose coverage, so that would trigger a special enrollment. Loss of minimum essential coverage. this I have personal experience with. You want to reach out to your local Department of Labor because they have what I know to be as like one-stop career centers or benefit centers. So people who become unemployed, usually they file their application online, but sometimes they have to go to an orientation session at the Department of Labor where they get assistance to more or less be up and running and start their job search. Guess what? You want to be there because all of them potentially have a qualifying life event, meaning if they lost their employment and they had insurance through their employer, they can now get insurance, right? So make sure you reach out to your local Department of Labor. If you Google New York Department of Labor local offices, you will find a listing of offices in your counties. So be able to do that. They also have what I know them to be as rapid response seminars. So the Department of Labor might get a request from a company, and it's not necessarily a small company. It's usually a big company like a hospital laying off 300 individuals, and they will bring in what is known as the rapid response team that will go over, how do you file for unemployment, what's the market looking like for this sector. And you want to be there, and let me tell you, people are going to want to hear from you because they want to know what are my health insurance options now that I'm losing my job and I'm probably losing my insurance. And again, personal experience, you will probably be the most popular person at those meetings because they want to know how you can help me. Obviously, they know that they'll probably get unemployment and they'll know the process, but they really are concerned about how do I keep my coverage. So definitely that would be my biggest push, that being able to go to a local career stop and having a site there may be very well worth it because you will not only be able to see those who may qualify for a QHP, but also who may now be eligible for Medicaid because they lost their coverage, or Child Health Plus because their kids were under the employer-sponsored insurance. Staffing agencies, job boards, including online boards like Monster or Indeed.com, newspaper ads in the employment section. If you can find a local newspaper that can announce that people who lost their employer-sponsored insurance for free, that would be even better. Other public benefit centers like DSS, Local Department of Social Services, or HRA here in the city. So remember, you're still reaching out to those people who may end up, for whatever reason, at any of these public benefit centers. For example, someone may be looking for food stamps or food assistance because they lost their job and they really cannot afford. That's a great place for you to be at because, one, they may qualify for Medicaid or they may qualify for a QHP. And you want to get to them early. Remember, they only have 60 days to enroll. Housing court, employers, HR departments for small or big businesses, right? You always want to be able to be there and provide your referral in case they have any employees who are going to be losing their coverage for whatever reason. So for example, even unions will change the rules of who is able to get coverage through a family member. Once they change a rule and a family member is no longer eligible for employer-sponsored coverage under their plan, you could be talking about a few hundred individuals who now have 60 days to enroll through the marketplace. So these are general, broad ideas. Your task is to narrow it down to tangible agencies, organizations, or individuals that you can tap into. So that's the main point about the training, special enrollment periods, and qualifying life events. I hope it provided you with an overview to start thinking about this stuff. You should be trying to create, again, a plan of action sooner than later because May is going to be around the corner as to how you're going to move forward and, again, continue to help hopefully reach that 1.1 million number. I'm going to go over, let me see. I can take some questions. We'll take some questions. I know you guys have probably a lot of questions.
So what is the time span for the special enrollment period?
So 60 days from the triggering event or qualifying event.
Next, I have a client who was eligible for a subsidy and still wanted Medicaid. She wanted to reduce her work hours in the next few months to see if she qualifies for Medicaid?
As long as that's a legitimate reduction.
If someone wants to cancel their Medicaid or COBRA coverage, will they be eligible for insurance during the special enrollment period?
So if you're eligible for Medicaid, you're eligible for insurance. So that's not loss of minimum essential coverage, right? So you would not get a special enrollment period to go get tax credits. I'm answering as I'm thinking about the answer. Now, COBRA, you have to exhaust COBRA at this point. Once you miss the open enrollment period, you have to exhaust COBRA. You cannot just drop it.
Can we get a list of carriers offering individual insurance outside of the marketplace for the remainder of 2014?
Oh, God, that's like a wish list. I don't think we have the capability at this point to get that. The only thing that I thought about was hopefully to find someone here in our office who has the patience to call around and see what's the status for different carriers. I don't even think the Department of Financial Services will be able to give us that list. From my prior experience in trying to get similar materials, it's been impossible. We'll see what we can do if we can find out. I mean, it would be amazing to have that additional resource to say to the clients, you don't have a qualifying event, you might be able to go to the individual marketplace and explore your options. But to be honest, I don't think we'll be able to get something comprehensive or something like that. But we'll write it down and we'll see what we can do.
For COBRA expiration and QLE, is coverage retroactive to the date COBRA expired?
Let me go back to where I have COBRA. Coverage begins the first day of the following month. So if someone lost COBRA, meaning they exhausted their COBRA benefit at any time during the month, as long as they apply within that month, they will have it the first of the following month. Remember that someone who loses their employer-sponsored insurance will still, by law, have the option of getting COBRA, right? And in fact, usually they get a notice and they have 2 months to be able to opt for COBRA, and then they just pay retroactively, right? And so that's one way to avoid absolutely any lapse in coverage. Let's say the client missed that first month and didn't enroll. They may have a little bit of a lapse if they tried the second month to enroll. So that's their call. But chances are COBRA is going to be more expensive potentially. I mean, if they're not eligible for premium tax credits, it might not make a big difference depending on the COBRA cost and so forth. But that's something that clients are going to have to decide at that point when they lose their employer-sponsored insurance. One, do they select COBRA, or do they go ahead and use the special enrollment period and go through the marketplace?
How do we know if loss of employer-sponsored plan is unaffordable or inadequate? Do we just take the word of the client, or do we have to contact the employer to research?
No. So we actually did a presentation a while back on what constitutes unaffordable and what is inadequate. So there are some questions on the marketplace application where it will ask you, do you have employer-sponsored coverage and so forth. The rule is that if the employee has to pay more than 9.5% of his household income, not just individual income, household income, towards the cost of his insurance only, then it's unaffordable. Meaning he has to pay more than 9.5% of his income just for his coverage, then it's unaffordable. He can go ahead and get the premium tax credits. If the plan being offered by the employer has an actuarial value of 60% or less, meaning it covers or pays 60% or less, then or less than 60%, then it's inadequate. There is a form on the New York State of Health Marketplace. I'm going to see if I can get the internet. If you go to the website, the New York State of Health website, under the tab Forms, there is a form the client can fill out and take to the HR department or their employer, and that will prompt the employer to provide information. So if you go to Forms, it is The third one, give me 1 second. It says DOH 4450, employer-sponsored health insurance request information. You can give that to the client. The client will take it to the employer, and it pretty much guides the employer or HR department to write down the monthly employee premium amount, right? So once you know the monthly premium amount for that employee, you will talk with the client and figure out the 9.5. The system is supposed to figure all this out. My recommendation, have this form handy. It's not just the client's word. The client, from my experience, this is complicated for the client. This is complicated to even explain it to the client, and some parts of it might not even make sense. So it's like a 2-page form, and then you can upload this if there's ever an issue. Okay?
Is it necessary for a couple to combine their individual account set before marriage? Do they need to make a life event change?
Repeat the question.
Is it necessary for a couple to combine their individual account set before marriage? Do they need to make a life event change?
I'm not understanding the question. Filing. So once you're married, if you want tax credits, if you want QHP, remember, not everyone will qualify for tax credits. So if they don't want tax credits, they don't have to file jointly, right? When they're going to go ahead and apply, their moment starts from the date of marriage when they can apply, and from that point forward, there are very specific rules in the IRS regulations or the regulations regarding to the marriage, meaning their tax credits, if they're eligible for them, will begin from the time that they get married. The reconciliation process will consider the unmarried portion and the married portion. Beyond the scope of this presentation, but everything is based by the life-change event, right? And at the end, the marketplace or the feds, once they do the reconciliation, will be able to know when that person was married and whether they got tax credits as an individual prior to marriage and when the married household income situation changed. And at that point, remember, they have to file jointly for those months that, for the following.
Not a question, but a comment. CMS has mentioned that Medicaid is being offered to O and H visas, and those immigration attorneys who caution their clients that accepting Medicaid may negatively affect their future pursuit of permanent residency is incorrect. That is not considered public charge unless they're in a long-term care facility.
That is correct. So it's a really good point, and I know that some of my groups have brought that up, that clients might be eligible for Medicaid, and then they're very concerned that their lawyer has told them, no, you're going to be deemed a public charge. Under the rules, they would not. New York does not have the 5-year bar, meaning you do not have to have legal status for 5 years before you are eligible for Medicaid. So just, you can reassure them, if you need something concrete like a rule, let us know and we'll try to find it for you to provide to your clients. It's hard to dispel that, right? And every state is different, and the general practice in the law may not be up to par with what is happening, right? So historically, that might have been the case. It's been a while, I think, here where that is not the case.
Is retirement considered a qualifying event?
Well, retirement would have to fall under one of the other categories, right? Were you working and then you lost your employer-sponsored insurance? Yes. By the act of retiring itself, no, right? Like, meaning, do you retire by saying that you're going to claim Social Security benefits? If you retire because you're going to claim Social Security benefits, your chances are not. You're probably not eligible for the marketplace coverage because you would be eligible for Medicare. So you really have to fall under one of those loss of minimum essential coverage probably. It's not like marriage or birth.
If someone called, left a voicemail over the past day or two, and we have not been able to get back in touch with them to schedule an appointment before the 31st, will I be able to contact them and schedule them to enroll before the 15th if eligible for a QHP?
We're waiting for further guidance from the state today based on the FAQ, which I'm going to bring up to the screen, that they put out. It would seem that if they were not able to find or get your, like, delay in getting an appointment with an assister, which that seems to be the case you're referring to, they may be able to do the application. We are, again, trying to get, from a practical perspective, the workaround, meaning what are they going to have to do. At this point, I would probably not promise your clients anything in those situations where they didn't start an application. I think, again, we're hoping that either today or tomorrow morning we'll have some further guidance and you can follow up with them. You can tell them that you're waiting for further guidance from the state as to how you should proceed with their application. If they started an application, then it's more clear that you should be able to continue.
If clients lose employment and are unable to pay the monthly premium, does that open up a special enrollment period?
And they are unable to pay the premium through the marketplace? So not necessarily, right? I mean, if they lost their job, they're probably going to edit their account and report the change, and they should be eligible, hopefully, for some tax credits to help them. But inability to pay your premium is not a qualifying. Well, if you lose your income, you might be eligible for an exemption. I mean, it's just really tricky because, one, you should be eligible for subsidies, depending on what the loss is. Two, if not, you would be eligible potentially for Medicaid, again, depending on where you're at. I just don't see how losing your job necessarily would lead to a special enrollment.
So it's more like whether the impact of losing your job triggers any of the other criteria.
Correct. Correct. So let's say you lost your employment, you were not in the marketplace, and you're now eligible. I know that would not, I mean, yeah, I'm sorry. I would have to think about that more thoroughly, but yeah, I don't see why that would necessarily just result.
Regarding the adverse selection issue, how can an insurance company deny coverage to someone enrolling off the marketplace?
It's simply that every insurance company offers, from my understanding, offers products, right? And they can have their own rules as to their enrollment periods. So if they're no longer offering that product, you cannot buy it.
But we would have to follow on that because there's still guaranteed issue, right? There's still guaranteed issue in New York State, which means that if you want to purchase coverage, I don't know, an insurance company has to offer it to you. And
as long as they're selling the product.
As long as they're selling the product. Okay, good. Mm-hmm.
So we definitely need more information, and we need to do more research on this. Obviously, this was looming in our heads, not like super priority because we were more focused on open enrollment, but now it's very pertinent for us to find out what the market is looking like outside, meaning individual market, not the marketplace.
Will materials be developed and distributed by New York State of Health regarding the special enrollment period?
Yes, we actually sent out the first preliminary, at least for the CNN. I'll send what we have for CNN to my groups. I didn't send those out because they were very navigator targeted, but I'll share them with you guys, with the foundation folks, in case you want to, extract some of the information and so forth. They do have some basic ones. I think it's a one-pager that talks about the special enrollment. Also, this FAQ at the bottom, it has like good Q&As for you to go over and explain to clients, right? What is a qualifying life event? And you can go through that, and which is pretty much what we've been discussing, right? Yeah, so use this as a guide. Anything else that they put out, obviously, we will let you know.
9.5 is unaffordable in New York. The exemption website, healthcare.gov, that New York State of Health directs us to, says 8%.
Okay, so there are two different things, right? There's an affordability exemption, meaning you don't have employer-sponsored coverage, and the cost of getting coverage through the marketplace would cost you more than 8% of your household income. you qualify for an exemption, meaning you will not be subject to the individual mandate. The affordability piece for the employer-sponsored coverage, meaning the question is, my employer offers insurance, can I go through the marketplace because it's not affordable? That's based on 9.5% of your income. Two different things. The exemption from the individual mandate, they're just looking at 8% of your household income. The affordability for employer-sponsored coverage, that again, if it's not affordable, you can go through the marketplace, it's 9.5% of your income. Two different calculations.
I have a couple who do not file their taxes married jointly. They did the application and found their plan not affordable. Can the parent that claimed their one child reapply just for himself and the child? Mom can get affordable insurance via her job.
The child can apply and should not have a problem, I believe, if they're eligible for Child Health Plus. My concern would be if they are, if they're not eligible for Child Health Plus and they are above, or they're above 400% of the federal poverty level, which would be actually the same thing, then the tax credits do require joint filing. The thing is that regardless, if it's just for the child, they both need to include their income, right? And the general rule is whenever you involve tax credits, married people must file jointly. And it doesn't matter whether the insurance is only for the dependent. If that didn't make sense, send me an email with your question again, and I'll clarify for you. We'll take a couple more questions, and then we'll conclude with the training portion.
If someone voluntarily changes jobs and their new job does not offer health insurance, is that a qualifying event?
Yeah. So if they had insurance before, right? So what's the triggering event? A loss in job is not a triggering event. It would be a loss in minimum essential coverage. So let's say I work here at CSS, I have insurance benefits, I say forget it, I'm done, I'm going somewhere else, and my new employer doesn't offer it, then I have a qualifying event because I was enrolled in health insurance, right? But the other way around, no, not necessarily. You need the loss of minimum essential coverage. It will be great once you're seeing clients and working with this information to have like the one page where it has all those things and remind yourself, what is the triggering event? Loss of job, not necessarily unless it's accompanied by loss of minimum essential coverage.
Can a parent drop a child from their employer-based insurance and put them on Medicaid or Child Health Plus?
Yes, the short answer is yes. The only thing is that that child may be subject, not for Medicaid. If they're eligible for Medicaid, they should be fine. For Child Health Plus, they may be subject to the 3-month waiting period. So let me give you an example of what happens, right? So parents have their kid who is eligible for CHIP based on the guidelines under their employer-sponsored plan. When they apply for CHIP, unless the child is exempt from the 3-month waiting period, will not be able to enroll in CHIP, right? If the child is under age 5 or the parents make up to, I can't remember the percentage of the federal poverty level, they will not be subject to that 3-month waiting period. So potentially the child would have to go without insurance for 3 months. That's very scary for many parents, right? But the other issue that is perhaps even more difficult is that sometimes the parents have to wait until their plan's open enrollment period begin in order to take out the kid. For example, the parent says, well, okay, assuming my child is not subject to the 3-month waiting period, or I don't care, I'd rather wait for the 3-month waiting period because I really cannot afford to pay it through my job. When they go and try to disenroll their child from their employer-sponsored plan, their plan may say, well, we can only by law disenroll you if you show me proof that the child has coverage. Now, the child cannot have coverage through CHIP until they're disenrolled from the employer-sponsored. So usually those parents would have to wait until the next open enrollment period through their job to take out the child and put them into Child Health Plus. If that's too much information and complicated, let me know. Again, I can clarify. what are the events that do not trigger the 3-month waiting period? Those are on your training manual. And under the CHIP section, you'll be able to see and read about the 3-month waiting period, and it will say the following situations do not subject a child to that. Now, if the parent did not have, if the child did not have insurance through an employer, but the parents were paying outside on their own for that child is not subject to the 3-month waiting period. It's only when the child had insurance through the employer. If the parents were paying for it outside the marketplace, they can enroll at any time in CHIP.
If someone was an inpatient for the past couple of weeks and just released today, will they be eligible to apply via the marketplace?
God, I mean, I hope they're Medicaid eligible so they can go back. There is like, I mean, it's questionable because going back to our different categories, is that an exceptional circumstance that they can show that prevented them, right? So my short answer is it's very hard. They can, and they should certainly try as soon as possible. And obviously, if that's a client of yours and you want to do a little bit of advocacy once we get further information from the state, and they were in touch with you, let's say, yesterday when the deadline was there and they had that hardship, maybe you can help them out. But in general,
one of the extraordinary circumstances.
Yeah, but we want to, I mean, at this point, because we're so close, we want to avoid any having to potentially go through all the avenues to find out what extraordinary circumstance, how would we file for that. If you have that client and you can get them in through the extension, which again, we will provide any further guidance the state gives us, you kind of want to do that.
Yeah.
Final question, and then we'll move on.
If a soon-to-be 19-year-old child recently moved out of her parents' house due to a bad situation and wants to be emancipated from her parents, would she be eligible for Medicaid, or would she have to go through the emancipation and get dropped from her parents' coverage before getting Medicaid?
Well, if she has any health insurance, she will, I mean, potentially maybe Medicaid will be secondary. I think the bigger question is, can she go ahead and do it on her own without being emancipated? I don't know the answer. I know that that's something that has been coming up, and I don't know if we are, as navigators right now, fully equipped to be able to address those circumstances. We will follow up with you guys. The problem is that someone who is in that situation may be, not always, better off going to the local Department of Social Services because they may have additional resources for that teenager who probably left their home, maybe potentially facing homelessness, and may need additional assistance, so they can get a little more help through that. We will follow up on that question of whether they can go ahead. The other issue with that population that has come up is like, well, what if the parents are claiming them on their taxes, right? They're going to be a dependent, so they might not potentially be Medicaid eligible if the parents' income still counts. The only response I have for that is, well, then the parents may have an issue if the child left the home and they do not meet the dependent IRS guidelines to be able to claim him as a dependent, and that's going to be a separate issue, which is beyond the scope of my knowledge of how that would look like. But I think we should look into this because it's coming up more and more, and I'm sure you're going to come across young people who unfortunately find themselves in that circumstance. Okay, so that was the final question. Any other questions? We'll try to answer them individually through email. Final updates. Elizabeth already mentioned the Medicaid estate recovery. So like 3 or 4, well, more than 3 weeks, probably a month ago, we had a little bit of a riot. Everyone was very alarmed about us not telling clients or highlighting the fact that Medicaid or the state could go after them for any Medicaid services if they were over 55. Elizabeth announces that it was put on the budget. So basically, so far you should not have seen clients that are obviously using nursing facilities because those would be deemed non-magi. So it's on the budget. The relevant language says that recovery should be limited to medical assistance consisting of nursing facility services, home and community-based services, and related hospital and prescription drug services. Again, the clients that you have been seeing, if you didn't give them the big warning and they were over 55, I think with this new budget and language in place, it amends the rule and they should not be worried. We'll get you more information or resources as they become available. This information is only applicable for navigator partners. I'll mention which ones are potentially applicable for foundations, certified application counselors. So this is a big one. Navigators are not allowed to do enrollments in I can never pronounce this word, jails or prisons until further notice. The state's position is that they need to issue guidance on how to serve this population. They have been promising this guidance already for a few weeks. We're hoping it will come out soon because if you think about it, this is a considerable pocket or population that you want to tap into and enroll, right? Because it's a fixed site, they're there. The county probably wants to save money and so forth. Do not make any arrangements at this point, please. We will get you that guidance as soon as it comes out. And also for CNN, if you are using any site that you have not reported before, you need to let us know in advance. And the state wants to know that in advance because they want to know where we're at. They don't want to get a surprise call or information that we are somewhere where we never even mention it to them. If it's, and that could also be like a big event. Remember at the beginning when we started open enrollment, the state was very strict about us letting them know whether we were doing interviews, whether they're doing special enrollment events and so forth. That rule kind of still stands, even though we're like close to the end of open enrollment. So you have to report it in advance. It's very important. Explain, I think Leon already sent the additional CNN enrollment site reporting form. If you don't have it, let us know and explain a little bit on the form of what the activity entails. Again, this is only for CNN partners, budget modification updates. The state has decided to play a larger role in the budget modification approval process. Moving forward, please make sure to submit all budget modification requests to Bethany. Her email address is there at least 30 days before the changes are to go into effect. So you know you have your budget and your contract with CSS. If you need to modify your budget, it has to be prospectively. It cannot be retroactively. As an important reminder, retroactive budget mods are not allowed. Expenditures cannot be allocated according to the changes until they are approved in writing. Meaning you cannot say, I'm going to have to change my budget, and then let us know after the fact and expect us to honor it backwards, right? Any questions on this part on the budget, contact Bethany. Again, this is only for CNN Navigator partners. This is not for the New York State Health Foundation. We have like 1 minute. Any general questions that anyone may have? If not, we're going to give you a 2-minute break, and then downstate groups, thank you so much for joining us. Upstate groups, you still have a little bit more time with us. We want to hear about all the amazing work I'm sure you have been doing, especially in the last few weeks, especially yesterday. So if no questions, 2-minute break, and then upstate groups, please remain on the line.
All right, so a very good afternoon to everyone. We made it. We made it past open enrollment. Woo! And I don't know if anybody had an opportunity to look at the New York State of Health website today. It looks like the updated number is 826,000 enrollments during the 6 months of open enrollment period. And your organizations, each one of you on the phone, you played a significant part in that. So thank you very much for all your hard work and dedication, all the late nights, all the phone enrollments, all the weekend enrollments. Your efforts made a difference here in New York State. Every day we're writing the pages of history with the Affordable Care Act. So thank you so much. We are super excited. We had people just walking in off the street yesterday, trying to do enrollments. I heard one organization, they went till after 10 o'clock last night doing enrollment. So we try to get as much people in as possible. And I'm sure most people have heard by now, if you do have clients that started an application, by yesterday, you weren't able to fully complete it, they now have until April 15th to get those applications completed. So, just a little bit more ways to go, but we're trying to get in as much people as possible, get them completed and enrolled into quality, affordable health insurance plans here in New York State. With that said, thank you very much. We want to open it up. We want to get some stories from the field. How have things been over the past few weeks, over the past month? Are we getting any success stories from clients? What's happening out there in the field? We want to hear from you, all our upstate partners. If you can please raise your virtual hand, and we're going to unmute you. We do have a few people that do not have an audio pin entered. So if you do raise your hand and you don't have an audio pin entered, you won't be able to speak to the entire group. So if you can, at this point, please raise your hand, and we're going to unmute you so we can get some stories from the field.
Joyce from Adirondack.
Hey, Leon, how are you?
Doing all right. Pretty excited over here.
I hear that. It's awesome. I wish we could be down there with you. We would all be celebrating together.
Yeah.
We were pretty, the last week, I'd say, was pretty crazy around here. We had people coming in to the office, similar to what you had. They were just, all of a sudden, people just started showing up and asking questions or, saying, I need help. And so we had people all over the place here trying to help them. We were, calling people. I got several voicemails on my personal line. We were calling people back and getting them in as many as we can. We were booked solid right up until the deadline, and we even had one of our navigators. She was open for business on Sunday. She took 6 phone appointments on Sundays. I believe she enrolled 4 out of the 6 on Sunday. So it's been crazy, but it's been fun. We felt good getting through as many as we did, and we're feeling pretty good about the extension too, because it allowed us to get to some of those people that we just couldn't squeeze in.
Excellent, excellent, great work. I mean, do you have like a rough estimate of probably how much applications you completed? Not an exact number.
As of today, this was in total, it would be 1,445.
Wow, yeah! All right.
Not bad, huh?
That is
Yep,
great.
feeling
That is
pretty good.
fabulous.
Thank you. Yeah, everybody works very, very hard, so they deserve.
All right. Well, thank you very much. That is excellent news, and we're just waiting to hear. Well, we're looking to get some feedback from clients that some people that have received the insurance cards, people that are using the service. So hopefully you'll get some feedback from some clients in the field in the future. All right.
Next, we have Brian from Syracuse Northeast.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey guys. Yeah, it was pretty exciting here too. Jack and I, we worked on the weekend, meeting people all over town wherever they could, and it was good. We put in a lot of good effort. We ended up with close to 250, I think, for just our little small operation. So we're pretty happy with it. A lot of good stories, clients crying on our shoulders and things like that. So it was good. It was rewarding, I would say. And we're pretty set up for the future, too. We got into the downtown Medicaid office a couple days a week, doing some outreach at a place called CNY Works, which does a lot with unemployment stuff. So I think we're in a good situation up here. We're excited.
All right. Woo! All right. Yeah.
Stay on.
All right. Awesome. Great work. And I just want to, just by way of reminder, we want to hear from some of those clients that you assisted with the applications. In your contract, it is required that you submit 2 client stories.
Yeah, I got 2 to sign things so far. I just got to actually write them up. So.
Excellent. Okay, great.
Yep.
So, that's a reminder that everyone that's a part of the network, that is a requirement. So now that things are going to be cooling down by the end of the month, you can try to get those in and, get those out the way. So thank you.
Exactly
excellent work.
And can I just add, that requirement of stories is also for the New York State Health Foundation. If you have questions on what that requirement is, or you need help in getting access to the online form, let me know. Because I think now you probably have many clients that you can tap into and get their story after the fact. I know that your priority has been on enrolling, but we do need those stories, and the foundation definitely needs those stories.
All right. So if thank you for those wonderful stories you're hearing from the field. We have room to hear from some more people from all our upstate partners. If you can please raise your virtual hand.
Michelle Catan from SBDC.
Yes, hi guys. Just wanted to give you an update from the Small Business Development Center here. We're doing at Seago, Broome, and Tioga County. Our navigators, they've been booked the last few weeks, just all out, having up to 6 clients a day, just pushing as many people as they can through. Lots of phone calls, and the clients are just generally overwhelmed and so appreciative of being able to get affordable insurance for them and their families. Lots of people just thanking us for our efforts. So it's been a good time here for us, and I think overall for the quarter we've done almost 200 or better, for our center, for our 2 navigators. So we're happy with the results, and the people are very satisfied.
All right. Woo! Yeah! Over 200. That's awesome. Excellent work.
Next, we have Jean from Tompkins.
Hi, this is Jean McFeeters from Tompkins County. We've completed 208, and we have about 15 that we still don't have a result on from New York State that are reviewing papers, et cetera. I think most of them will get into Medicaid, but we're still waiting on a bunch of them. I would say the nature of the people has changed over the 6 months in terms of who's come in. More recently, we're seeing more Medicaid clients. In the early days, we saw more people, I'd say, between 55 and 60 and younger people. Also beginning to see some younger people, some eligible for Medicaid, a few eligible for QHPs. Did some outreach, went out to a farm, for instance, and worked with farm workers there, which was really interesting. And I think that we're planning to do some work with a group that helps people as they're getting out of jail. And we're also planning to do some work with a couple of other local agencies in town, maybe to go to food pantry sites.
That sounds great, and thank you for sharing. So if anyone else has seen patterns, it's very interesting to see, who's coming in. I did also get a sense that a few Medicaid clients were coming in, not so much probably because they knew that they can continue to enroll, but they're concerned about the individual mandate. So it was very interesting to see how clients who perhaps in the past, even if eligible for Medicaid, never really took the step to apply, now because the mandate is on their radar, they're coming in, which I think is great.
Yes, a lot of the people who came in had not been on Medicaid and clearly could have been on Medicaid. And also there were people who I think are falling, because of the expansion of Medicaid, suddenly were able to get it.
Yeah,
All right.
that's so great. That's a great observation.
Yes, all right. Woo! Yes, excellent work. Thank you, Gene.
Next we have Valerie from SATU.
Hi, Leon.
Valerie! Yes.
How are you?
Doing okay?
Good. Are we? You know that most of our counties, we service 7 counties, and a lot of them are very rural areas. And I wanted to be proud to say that we had almost 3,000 completed applications as of today that's in the CNN portal.
Yay! Yeah!
Yeah, we were pretty happy about that. So we still have a lot of work to do, and because it's been so busy, we still have to get some of our information into the portal. But it's been immensely rewarding helping a lot of these clients who had no other place to go.
I think it's amazing work to be able to reach out rural communities and get them enrolled and get those numbers. I mean, I know everyone works really hard. We commend your agency. It's amazing work that everyone has been doing. And from even our case rounds this morning,